100 Leadership Forum is an annual business and networking conference. Well, this year's forum is taking place at Makati Shangri-La in Manila, the Philippines. Under the theme, One ASEAN, How Close Are We? Presidents, CEOs, delegates, and former leaders join to celebrate the ongoing process of ASEAN connectivity through discussions, well, mainly about the integration of ASEAN as one close region against the economic and political uncertainties of the West, where remarks are given by these delegates. In the past, it was difficult to foresee how ASEAN would turn into an economic coalition due to vast political and cultural diversions. The question of how close are we was dim, as decades of hardships in the region passing through, while the Western Bloc is about to fall off the edge of the cliff, ASEAN has begun to see opportune characters of its own regional affairs. Although threats are present, yet they are apparently surmounted by the surrounding optimistic resources and markets.
I think the opportunities and threats are obvious, and it's not only pertaining to just the Philippines, but if we're talking about Southeast Asia, you're seeing opportunities across the sectors. Much of the world now are actually facing a lot of economic issues, US, Europe, but Southeast Asia, in particular, the bigger countries like the Philippines, Indonesia, and Thailand would have the growth number, the natural resources, and now the market that can absorb basically a lot of economic activities. So opportunities are abound. We're here to discuss and to ask a lot of questions. What are those opportunities, and to collaborate to basically see what opportunities can be explored together. And I think three areas: natural resources, consumer goods, as well as infrastructures opportunities are very you can find a lot in the Philippines, Southeast Asia, and other markets in Southeast Asia.
So as a president from the Saratoga capital in Indonesia, how do you see how lucrative is expansion in neighboring countries like Philippines or Thailand?
We're talking about one ASEAN, and it's very a very good concept. It's a market of 600 million people with 1.8 trillion combined GDP. You have a good successful strategies, for instance, in the Philippines, you can actually emulate that strategies across Southeast Asia. So now you see more Asian companies embarking on ASEAN strategies, on ASEAN platform, and this is what we talk about here.
We see wonderful cooperation going on, but generally driven by the private sector. So we see great Thai companies operating in Vietnam, whether it's in the seafood industry or in manufacturing, and we see excellent investment from the Philippines into Vietnam. And slowly you see Vietnamese companies also going overseas as well. But you see a lot more regional companies growing out of their home countries and expanding within ASEAN. And that for us as ANZ is very exciting. Yeah, I think there's both. There's the ASEAN community, and there's a lot of bilateral work that happens as well in resolving disputes or addressing tariff issues or facilitating trade, and that's fundamentally very important. And so I think it also just depends on the outlook of the government at that time. So different countries have its own, some have elected governments, some don't. And so it just really depends on the cooperation between government. But what the government does is set the parameters. It's really the private sector that drives through the opportunities. And so we see great opportunity in this part of the world.
For the delegates to speak for the motion of Philippine opportunities, they're actually addressing the question whether the Philippines can become the next Asian tiger, particularly within AEC. In 2015, do you think Philippines is ready economically, financially for it? Do you think so?
Well, ready or not, here comes 2015, and in fact, as former trade minister, I'm very familiar with the AFTA for these products. The competition and the exchange is already in place, and the Philippines is doing well.
So, what measures should be taken to prepare Filipino businesses and human resources for the AEC in particular?
I think foremost is really to support the reform efforts being undertaken by our president. Certainly the economic mood in the Philippines has improved significantly. We're showing a lot of improvement in our fiscal and tax collections, resulting in really very low deficits by global standards, huge international reserves. This has resulted in a much lower risk premium and much lower interest rates in the Philippines. And this is further promoting the positive sentiment in the Philippines and creating a lot of opportunities for long-term investment.
Right.
Well, the biggest opportunity, of course, is as ASEAN integrates, as it becomes one market, the Philippine companies that are competitive, and there are a number that are world-class, world-beating companies, like Ayala Land, like Jollibee, like ICTSI, like San Miguel, and so on. They will have access to a much larger market. And that's why it's important for us to persist in this vision of creating one ASEAN market.